Today we're going to rank every evolution in Clash Royale by how good it is to upgrade. Hope you guys enjoy this video and find it helpful and informative. If you do, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Let's get into the tier list. Let's start with the best evolution in Clash Royale right now, and it's got to be the Pekka. It's just absolutely 100% S tier. The Pekka is getting a nerf in the final balance changes. I believe it's around a 20% less heal, but this is the current best evolution in the game. The nerf doesn't look like it's going to make a huge impact, and if you want immediate wins, you want immediate success, I would 100% go with the Pekka evolution. If you don't already have it, do your best to try and get your Evo shards, get the Pekka evolution as soon as you can. It has a lot of well, actually doesn't really, only has 3 main decks you can use it in, but those decks are completely busted. You got Pekka Goblin Giant, you got Pekka Ram Rider right now. More decks are certainly going to come, and you can beat pretty much every deck in the game with Pekka right now, except for a very few niche counters. Next up, we have the Royal Recruits, and this is a very interesting evolution because it has been very, very dominant in the meta, and it feels like the evolution itself can be really, really strong. But if we're ranking the card evolutions based off of how strong they are to build a deck around and how useful they are, how much you should focus them, I'd have to drop them in the C tier, because although personally from a top ladder perspective, I feel like they're one of the most oppressive evolutions in the game. If you are trying to build a deck around Royal Recruits, as a player who's maybe not on top ladder, I wouldn't recommend it at all. It's not a good idea at all to focus on the recruits. If you already have them, and you already have a deck for them maxed, it can be a good idea to pursue it depending on the meta. It's not in the upper echelon of card evolutions, especially not for lower on ladders. The drill is, I'd actually have to look again at the final balance changes for the drill. I'm actually going to do that real quick. So the Goblin Drill is removing the damage and the knockback from its second and third spawns of the drill. You're getting deploy time to the Goblin spawn from Submerge, and we're adding a Goblin to the second Submerge. So right now, I think it's a top 3 evolution in the game. There's a lot of decks are designed to try and counter it. As a deck and as, whole, we're going to have to see what these new balance changes do to the drill. But since drill decks are just so good to outplay with and are constantly good in the meta, and Demolisher's not getting a nerf, I'm going to drop the drill in the A tier because it is a very good evolution to build a deck around. Still very strong. It's looking like this rework it's getting is going to be a nerf. I need a new chair and a new computer. God, bro. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear it creaking, but I'm going to put it in the A tier. Very strong evolution. Very good to build a deck around. You could potentially drop it to the B tier based on how much of a nerf this is and how much the meta favors drill or not. Goblin Giant's going in the A tier because Goblin Giant is a very strong evolution. It itself is not the strongest evolution in the game, but the decks you put it in currently with the Pekka and with the Wizard are so oppressive. Honestly, I'm not even sure if I don't think it's getting a nerf. I don't think anything about Goblin Giant is getting a nerf. Any part of the decks, obviously the Evo Pekka deck will get a nerf, but at the same time, this is going to be a very impressive card, and I would 100% focus on, if you're wanting an easy beatdown deck to play, Goblin Giant evolution is a very good one to try and play, especially since it's probably not going to get touched for at least 2 months. And in order of drill and Goblin Giant, I would probably put I'm just going to leave it as is. I think it's a little bit worse than the Goblin Drill, but it's still in the A tier. We got Wizard. I would put him in the S tier right now. I think he is getting a slight nerf to his knockback. The Wizard has become a little less oppressive in the meta right now, but he is very, very good to build a deck around, and you could make an argument for him being in the A tier. I just think right now, personally, S tier evolution, I would 100% max it if I was going to be a mid-ladder account trying to play a deck that's easy to play. There's tons of Wizard decks out there. If you want, I can link you specific Wizard decks. I would go to royaleapi.com/decks, and then you can use the filters there to search for good decks. I'll post a link for that in the description. But yeah, Wizard S tier evolution, one of the best in the game, only getting a minor nerf, and based on what decks are in the meta will kind of determine how good it is, and maybe it'll drop it to A tier, but doesn't make that much of a difference. Wall Breakers, I'm gonna go ahead and drop them in the B tier. The evolution, I'm gonna drop them. I'm gonna go C tier because I think that every Wall Breakers deck right now has a better evolution in it, especially if you're lower on ladder. You're gonna get more value out of, let's say, the Tesla or the Knight or the Firecracker maybe over the Wall Breakers. I don't think it's a, as an evolution, I think it's a B tier evolution, but to build a deck around and the strength of it, and I just think it's a C tier evolution. It could teeter in between these. Not the strongest evolution in the game. I wouldn't recommend building it. Mortar is currently, as we speak, in the S tier. It is, however, receiving 2 direct nerfs. One to the Mortar. So it's going to make the Mortar initial hit speed aligned with the actual Mortar. So the first hit speed's getting nerfed. And Cannoneer's getting nerfed. Quite a bit of the Mortar usage rate is climbed due to Cannoneer being in the meta and Mortar Bait being a deck that abuses the hell out of Cannoneer. It uses and just destroys Cannoneer decks. So I would think after the balance changes, it becomes an A tier deck. But if you want to make an Evo Mortar deck, I would highly recommend it. It takes a bit of patience and there's a bit of learning curve, but the current broken Mortar Bait deck is very easy to start playing, start picking up, and it has most of the cards that are pretty easy to level up as well, and it's pretty satisfying and a good evolution. I would put it, actually, I'm gonna move it. Yeah, these are all almost interchangeable. Like, I'm trying to rank them in order, but like they're almost all interchangeable here. I'm actually gonna put Goblin Giant in front of the Drill right now, just because I think it's better for you to try and start playing the Goblin Giant. Evo Zap, I'm gonna put in the B tier. It's currently A tier. It's getting I'm gonna put it in the B tier. It is a solid evolution. Getting a rework, it's no longer going to have 3 stuns. It will have 2 stuns with full damage in each stun. I think that it is a very useful, if you have Zap in your deck, to get a Zap evolution. It's not game breaking. I wouldn't put it in the A tier. If you're trying to build a deck around a Zap, I would 100% just do it. I mean, Zap is just a very good quality of life, powerful Evo, can shift games for you. The rework, I'm not sure what interactions will change. We'll have to play test it. Evo Goblin Barrel, I'm going to go ahead and I think stop in the C tier. I don't think it's worth it to build a Evo Goblin Barrel deck right now. If you are already playing a log bait deck, Evo Goblin Barrel is very solid, and I just don't think I would put it higher than the C tier. I mean, I'm going to drop it to B tier. I know this is like, I can't make up my mind, but Goblin Barrel is not something I wouldn't focus on just upgrading a Goblin Barrel deck because of the barrel evolution. If you are playing a bait deck and you have interest in it, I would go after it. It is very solid and you can outplay definitely and get big damage with the Goblin Barrel, but it's not something I would pursue. If you already play it, go ahead, get it. It's a very powerful evolution in the bait decks, given that also they don't have another evolution. But yeah, it's just, I wouldn't go try and build a Goblin Barrel deck, especially not in the meta right now. It's a pretty high learning curve. Valkyrie, I'd give it, I'm honestly going to put it in A tier. I think I'm a little biased. I think the Valkyrie, especially for like maybe mid-ladder decks, right now she's so good. The problem is she can't fit in other decks really well. There's kind of no reason to, I almost don't think she's A tier worthy. She is a very strong evolution, but the versatility is just not there. So if you're playing like maybe Lava, or you're playing, I guess, your own homemade Valkyrie deck, you can try substituting Valkyrie in for Knight or something like that. But I think you can make an argument for her being a B tier evolution. I'm putting her in the A tier because I've personally seen how strong she is. And if you want to make a very oppressive deck, Lava Loon with Evo Valkyrie is extremely good. Royal Giant right now in the meta is like D tier. Like, he just sucks. But Royal Giant decks are, you know, a Pekka evolution nerf away from being right back in the meta. And I drop it B tier because I think that Royal Giant will be a strong deck again. It's very good in the meta, and it probably will be a pretty strong deck. But the evolution is not. I mean, he stomps the ground, guys. He gets rid of skeleton armies. Like, Royal Giant is a very good deck, but Royal Giant evolution, you could play it without the evolution. Like, it doesn't affect the whole deck too much, but I think Royal Giant as a whole will be pretty good this next season. And if you want to play Royal Giant, if the Pekka does die down a little bit, because it's the best card in the game, if it does die down a little bit, I don't think Mega Knights, we'll get to Mega Knight, but I don't think it's at all oppressive as we thought it was going to be. Maybe that's just because of how good the Pekka is. I don't know. Evo Bats. I'm gonna go B tier with Evo Bats. I think this is interesting. I think you could argue C tier, but I think that any deck with bats in it, bats are very good because they're going to survive the small spells. You can get good outplay with them. They do die to arrows, but when you play bats, you typically have a spell bait deck. So you're going to be able to bait out the arrows. And if they arrow your bats, that's really good for you being able to use something else. I think bats are very underrated. I think they don't fit in that many decks, but when you do have Evo bats, they do provide a quite a bit of value. And I wouldn't, you know, go get the Evo Bats evolution now, you know, but they're just like the Zap. I think they're a very good quality of life that really boost the Bats decks. Ice Spirits, I'm going to give it a B tier. Honestly, I think the Ice Spirit problem is not the evolution being bad. It's kind of, do you want to use an Ice Spirit evolution? Like, if you have the cycle decks, there might be a better evolution to use, but Ice Spirit as, like, you could argue C tier for the Ice Spirit, honestly. I might put it in C tier. Ice Spirit itself, like in 2.6, in Queen Hogs, it's a very powerful evolution that can absolutely, completely change the game for you. I will put it in C tier because of the criteria I'm kind of using as when I build a deck around Evo Ice Spirit. No, I wouldn't. Similar to the Wall Breakers, but it has to be the best C tier. I would give it a B.5 tier, you know, like in between B and C tier. It's not quite B tier. I think B tier is like solid, good evolutions. I think the Ice Spirit is just, it's good. It's very good. It's just, you know, would you use it over maybe the Tesla or the Knight? Probably not. But I think there's a lot of outplay with the Evo Ice Spirit. I think it can change the game. And I might put it low B tier, high C tier, or just straight up B tier. I think so. Evo Barbs are our first D tier. We haven't had a D tier. I mean, all the evolutions right now are pretty strong so far. The Evo Barbs are just, what did they do? Like, let's think of like pre-Evo Barbs, if you guys remember that time. It was a while ago. Barbarians, they get high DPS, right? They get high DPS. People use them in lava. They die instantly to fireball. They die instantly to splash guards. They die instantly to everything else. I think if in this Evo Pekka meta, they could be a bit better if they did survive the Pekka, but they've received the nerfs to the health, so they don't survive a Pekka one shot, and they don't even kill the Pekka, especially a raged Pekka. Everybody sees rage with Pekka now, and they're horrible. I don't know of a deck they fit in well. Can they get value sometimes? Yeah. Sometimes Barbarians are a very good matchup dependent card. You're like, do they make any difference compared to normal Barbs? No, I think they're the worst evolution we've looked at so far by a long mile. What's next? I can't see it. My camera's covering it. Evo Skellies. Hanger 8 here. Any deck you put Evo Skellies in are absolutely, you know, they've received their nerfs. I think they're still a very powerful deck. You can make an argument they're B tier. I think they're A tier. You can win entire games off of elixir tracking, counting cycles, spell baiting. Evo Skellies can bail you out of an entire defense. I think they're extremely strong. Would I build a deck around them if I'm playing cycle? Absolutely. I think it can change the entire course of especially mid-ladder games when you can just overwhelm your opponents and maybe spell bait them if you're, you know, if you've been practicing for a while. So, I mean, we're looking at the Evo Diddy Cage. I'd also drop it D tier. I think the Cage evolution is something that definitely needs a buff. I think Cage as a whole, there's not really much reason to use a Cage. I mean, there's an Evo Tesla. If I'm going to use a building, I'm going to use Tesla. I'm going to use Bomb Tower. Cage has fallen out of the meta well before they added the evolution. Cage is getting a buff in the balance changes. It'll do damage faster, but it feels like a card that can be good. I don't know what it's missing. Maybe let me know in the comments if you know what's missing, but it just feels like a card that can be good, but it's just not worth chasing the Diddy Cage. It's not a good evolution. It doesn't work half of the time, and it's not that good. So I wouldn't recommend using the Diddy Cage. We do have a Firecracker, and I would slap her in the B tier. Honestly, could be A tier. I think it really depends. I just don't think she's amazing in the meta right now. I think if you're playing like maybe Hog EQ, she's an A tier evolution. She's not in any other deck. The Wizard is better than the Firecracker in most decks, I would say. I would think the Firecracker's seen better days, I think. Very strong evolution, can be, you know, get good value. Ever since it's dieting to arrows, it just feels like it's not that great of an evolution. Very strong in hog decks, but in everything else, it's just B tier. Yeah, I know it's so annoying to face, guys. I really do. Everybody in mid-ladder plays it. Such a good card. It really is just, it's just polarizing, you know? And I feel like it's not an A tier evolution. No matter how much you're facing it in mid-ladder, it's not an A tier evolution. Once again, if we're bringing back the half tier, I'd actually put it B in a half tier. It's kind of floating in between here. Very good evolution in certain decks, but honestly, I've got to give it props for probably being the most, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the most like versatile evolution in the game, I would think, along with Zap. I would say it's the best in B tier, definitely could be in A tier. I think if you're looking for an evolution to fit in your deck and you can't find an evolution, you can make Firecracker work more than any other evolution in the game. If it gets points for that, then put it in the A tier. I'm going to put it high B tier. I think it has high upside. I already explained it. Evo Battle Ram, I'm going to go C tier. You can win a game off an Evo Battle Ram. It's in one deck. If you have the Battle Ram and you're rich and you don't want to send me a bunch of gift subs, then you can try and max Pekka Bridge Spam, which has 3 to 4 legendaries. The Ram Rider is one of the best cards in the game right now, and there is almost zero reason to waste an Evo slot and use the Battle Ram when you could just use the Ram Rider. So I think it could be B tier if maybe Battle Ram was just a better card. I think it's low C tier just because there's no decks that really use it. It can win you a game. It's pretty niche. Yeah, Ram Rider's just a better replacement, and you save an Evo slot. Evo Bomber's going in the A tier. I think that you can get more value more consistently out of a Bomber than you can out of a Firecracker. I think they're very similar cards. Bomber just lines up on the tower better half of the time. Bomber fits in more decks. Bomber is cheaper. Bomber doesn't give King Tower activations like Firecracker does, which is another problem with the Firecracker. Bomber is a well-rounded, versatile Evo found in so many decks. It's seen better days because it was like the best card in all of Clash Royale history. And I think that you're gonna have a very fun time going after the Bomber. And if you do have the Bomber, I would definitely recommend building a deck around it. You can run a Cycle Bomber deck, you can run a Beatdown Bomber deck. It's one of the most versatile cards in the game. Great evolution, highly do recommend. Tesla is getting a drop. It was A tier, I'd say, maybe even S tier evolution. I'm gonna put it in the A tier now because it is removing the second shockwave after death. I think that is going to be a significant nerf. Might even drop it to B tier. I don't know. Overall, the Tesla is getting buffed. It's getting like a hit speed buff, I believe. I think it's getting a hit speed buff. Let me check real quick. Tesla is getting a hit speed buff. It is an 8% hit speed buff. So it's very strong. Any cycle deck you can think of with a building, any deck with a building, Tesla is going to be your go-to choice. It is getting the Death Shockwave removed, so I don't know how much that's going to affect the card. I think that knocks it down from S tier to A tier, though. Very strong building, works in every cycle deck. The Death Shockwave, we have yet to see how much that'll impact the card. I think it's still very strong, and I'd definitely go after it if I was trying to build a deck with it. Evo Knight, I'll put him in the B tier. He's seen better days. Those weren't good days, but for him, they were. One of the best Evos in the game, one of the most versatile. I'm going to throw him up here. I think, again, he's pretty versatile, but at the same time, the Knight kind of just doesn't do what he used to do. He doesn't have any bonuses except for that shield. That can get you good value. Lots of the time, there are better evolutions in cycle decks in the Knights. And, I mean, there's not even that much Knight usage right now. I mean, in a few decks, yeah, but it's a solid evolution, right? It's not great. I wouldn't pursue it. If you have it, if you're using him, he's going to perform. He's going to do all right. The Knight is a good card. It's just not that crazy of an evolution. And the Evo Mega Knight's probably the biggest disappointment in here. I'd say I would personally, I want to put him in the C tier. He sucks. I'm putting him in the B tier because I believe it has a little bit to do with the meta. I think as an Evo, it's kind of underwhelming. Everybody posts the clips of, when the evolution comes out. I know those content creators post the clips of, the Mega Knight against the 15 worst cards to ever go up against the Mega Knight. And it looks like, oh my God, this is game breaking. And it's just, Like, I mean, maybe he will be better in the meta. I know a lot of people face Mega Knight, but like if you compare Mega Knight to Pekka, Mega Knight is still easier to counter. It does get better as an evolution. It doesn't fit in. I mean, I guess everybody has their mid-ladder Mega Knight deck. You can run the Mega Knight evolution, I guess, you know. Enjoy it. I don't think it's the most amazing evolution in the game. I think currently the Pekka is really hindering how good the Mega Knight can be. I think the Mega Knight could be a lot better in the meta as well. It's just right now is not a good meta for Mega Knight in general. So I think that it could jump up in the future. But right now, just the Pekka meta, it's not great for the poor Mega Knights. Archers, I put them in C tier. Archers, like the archers are, you know, if you use them right, they can get good value. I mean, this is really the C tier. I mean, if you use the recruits right, you get good value. If you use the wall breaker right, you get good value. Use the battle ram right, you get good value. Use the archers right, you know, they can get good value for you. But at the same time, like, how many decks use archers? They die to arrows. You have to be very good at spell baiting to get value out of them. Why would I use the archers when I could use maybe a bomber or a firecracker evolution? Why would I even use archers in the first place? You know, when I could use wizard, you know. I think they're one of the worst evos. I think bottom three, I think is the right place. You could argue they switch places with battle ram. I don't think so. Last but not least, we have the Electro Dragon going in the S tier. He did receive a nerf, so he'll no longer have infinite stun, but at the same time, although he hasn't released yet, this looks like it will absolutely boost beatdown decks. The issue, I think you could honestly drop him to A tier. The issue here is we're looking at the Evo E Dragon as super oppressive against beatdown decks, and the E Dragon is already really good against beatdown decks. That's what it specializes against. The E Dragon does really suffer against cycle decks. So are we going to be able to see the E Dragon dominate cycle decks from a beatdown deck perspective? I don't know. I mean, the Evo E Dragon looks like it's going to be very strong, but it doesn't look like very versatile. You can't just throw an Electro Dragon into a deck. It's got to be in maybe E Golem or, you know, lava, maybe lava, golem and E Dragon look like the golem and E Golem look like the main things you're going to put it in. I don't know. We have to see. I think it looks like it has the potential to be an S tier evolution. Definitely could drop to A or B tier depending on how the meta shifts to deal with him. And I think he might shift the entire meta. So we're going to have to see. I mean, is he going to be paired with healer cheese? We'll see. I think it looks oppressive. It could dominate against beatdown decks. At the same time, you know, it doesn't look like it's going to shift the needle that much unless it somehow actually is very good versus cycle, which is why E-Dragon is not that popular in the first place, is because cycle decks and decks with a lot of swarm just kind of get, or spells just destroy them anyways. So it's kind of difficult, but that's going to wrap it up for the Evo tier list, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. No F tier evolution, so you could, you know, you could drop the barbs maybe. I think that this should help you focus on what evolutions to pursue, what evolutions to upgrade. This is kind of based on the meta, but overall, I think that even with the meta shift, maybe we'll see the Pekka go down a tier, maybe we'll see the Wizard go down a tier, maybe we'll see the E-Dragon go down a tier. This is a pretty flawless tier list. If you have any objections, let me know in the comments below, but this is what you should build your evolutions off of. Like, try and pursue these top tier evolutions, build your deck around them, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I am also leaving the Royale API link down in the description so you can check out like how to find the good decks and stuff.